What's up, gentlemen? Colton, how'd you like that Colorado game the other night?
That was pretty crazy. That was a fight every play.
I know.
Coach Primes really got them all fired up in Colorado. They barely snuck out of that with the win. I mean, that was a lot closer than I thought it was going to be, and we'll see what goes on with them the rest of the season. I think they're going to get blown out by the Ducks this weekend, but
Yeah, me too. It's funny watching Colorado become like must see prime time football. It was like everyone I knew was watching that game except Riley, I guess. He was eating Ethiopian food. Is that right?
I was, but I still was following what was going on, and I heard quite a bit about it. And it was like you said, Colorado's the news now. I mean, we had like celebrities from that are normally nowhere near Colorado that were there to hang out. The Rock was there, which it makes
Yeah.
sense why he made that appearance in Denver on WWE. But and there were a bunch of other celebrities there too. So yeah,
I
we saw
know
a couple Blazer celebrities there, in fact.
I was going to say, did you guys see Chauncey Billups sitting next to Kyle
Nice
Lowry?
segue. Nice
Yeah.
segue.
Did you see him?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
did. It was funny. I saw them, and then like 5 seconds later, I got your text where you're like, Kyle Lowry is sitting with Chauncey Billups, or other way around.
Chauncey Billups sitting next to future Portland starting point guard Kyle Lowry.
No, he's not going to start.
Future waived point guard Kyle Lowry, more like it.
Yeah, he's got the expiring salary.
Because
If we have to trade to the Heat, of course, with Dame.
yeah, because as we all know, that's a guarantee that he's going to the Heat, right? Or Colton, do you have something else cooking over there that you think might happen with the
I
Damian Lillard
understand
trade
there's no
talk?
alternative.
Right. Well, the Heat would like us to think that there's no alternative, but interesting update from Mark Spears today. He tweeted out that the Blazers have been talking to several teams. He's hearing rumors about another Eastern Conference team that he's not willing to throw out just yet. But that, my friends, do you hear that? That is the sound of Pat Riley getting nervous.
I thought it
Because
was Liberty Bells. I thought you were making a 76ers reference for a second.
no, but an unnamed, if this is true, which it's always this, if this is true, that's always the thing with every report. But if this is true, another team entering the race to get Dame is nothing but a good thing for the Blazers in terms of value, in terms of just having other options, but also just driving up the Heat offer if you do have to end up trading him to the Heat. So good news, good news.
Yeah, when I think about, teams that we would want to trade with for Dame, the thing that is always a bummer is that I feel like all the teams with the best assets are in the West right now. And none of us want to see him go to the West. And it doesn't seem like he wants to go to the West either. I mean, according to him, he only wants to go as far away from here as is humanly possible. But I mean, even if we, just take him at the word of that he would maybe go play for a team like he promised the NBA he would do. The first team in the East that comes up and as far as trade assets would be like Boston. Which I don't know how that, if that's something that he would consider, if he would go play for them. It seems like it would be a pretty awesome opportunity for him. I mean, I feel like that's an instant championship contender.
He did say earlier in the offseason through, I believe, I can't remember his agent, that he did not want to go to Boston. He might have said it himself.
He
Specifically,
said
he did
plenty of
not want to
stuff through
play.
his agent that he wasn't
Oh yeah,
supposed to
I know.
say.
I know. So I don't think he wants to go to Boston. That doesn't mean that he couldn't get traded there, but that'd be interesting for sure. I mean, so I kind of wanted to ask you guys, just kind of a little game, little exercise. What team do you think is the second most likely team that we're talking to? And on the flip side, what team would you want us to be talking to? And it has to be in the East. So try and play around with those two questions. What do you guys think?
I'm looking right now,
Yeah,
checking out some potential options.
I think it would make a lot of sense to try to trade with Boston if I'm gonna forget about his preference thing. Like let's not worry too much about that right now, because apparently there's only one place he'd even consider going. But I think that Boston would potentially be a pretty good landing spot for Dame, and I think they actually have some assets that we might be able to use. Obviously they've lost a couple of their players, in the last few months that might be good trade assets, but they still have quite a few picks. They have like their 2024 first rounder, their 2025 first rounder, lots of second rounders that are all available for trade, and not a whole lot of swaps on the table either. So, I think that they have some stuff that we might be able to use. They're probably going to be pretty good, especially if they get Dame. So those aren't going to be lottery picks, but neither are the Heat. So I think that that's a team that I could see as maybe somewhat realistic. Maybe they could convince Dame that if he came, they'd be a contender, and he'd end up enjoying it. As far as who I think they're talking to, I mean, who I think they're talking to is just some sort of a proxy to try to make Pat Riley scared. But it could even be like Atlanta, maybe, or I'm sure there's a lot of teams that are just throwing out offers.
Get Trae Young back for him.
Yeah,
another point guard.
There's a lot. The problem is that a lot of the Eastern teams already have pretty good point guards, young point guards in some cases. But I think in some cases they may consider pairing even a young point guard with Dame, as more of a shooter. See if they could if they just need that shooting piece.
There's two teams that stick out to me, but only one of them's in the East. Colton, I'm afraid I'm going to blow up your spot here. I think this is probably what you might have more to say on this. You've talked about it before. The Toronto Raptors are an interesting trade partner because they have so much size at the forward position, young size with, a lot of upside. Namely Scotty Barnes. If the Blazers could somehow turn Damian Lillard into Scotty Barnes, I think that would be the best of all worlds, maybe. I mean, you get the exact position player you need back with a skill set different to what you already have. He's young and he can play with all the youth the Blazers have. And they have some other young assets too that they could throw in to make the salaries work and stuff. So I like that option quite a bit. The other one, not in the East, that I like, again, because it has a ridiculously high upside prospect, but more of a gamble on this one. The New Orleans Pelicans reunite Dame and CJ, backcourt of the future of the past, and hopefully get back someone like Zion. And if you can't get him, they have other young guys that I would be perfectly happy with as well. Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, et cetera, et cetera. They also have a lot of size, the wing position. So those two teams make a lot of sense from the swapping. They're deep in the forward and size position, not very deep in the point guard position. Blazers the exact opposite, so they could maybe help each other out a little bit. Obviously, both of those teams would have to take a pretty big gamble with hoping that they could, first of all, get Dame to play, which I think they would. He likes his money, as we all know. I think he would play, and he's locked into contract for a while. So, unless he just goes there and makes a huge fuss and is more trouble than he's worth, that it seems like a gamble a team like that might be willing to make, especially the Pelicans. They seem like in win now mode more than Toronto. But yeah, either one of those teams, I think that it makes a lot of sense for both teams. Maybe not as much sense for Dame, but he should. Is he the only one that has a say? I don't think he should be the only one that has a say in this trade.
Just one more team that I think is definitely a contender would be the New York Knicks. They have quite a few first rounders the next few years. It's been kind of a rumor that maybe Dame would want to go play in MSG. That's another possibility. Probably a better option than the Hawks or some of these other teams that are trying to pair younger guys.
New York's probably going to get Donovan Mitchell here soon too, so they'd be able to pair Lillard with Donovan Mitchell. That'd make a lot of sense for them. They'd probably just move on from Jalen Brunson, I guess, even though he's been such a good option for them. They'd probably, in order for that backcourt, they'd probably just ship him off. Maybe not.
touching on all your guys' points really quick before I get into mine, I think that New York, I don't think they're going to move on from Brunson. Brunson's dad works for the Knicks. I'm not sure if they're going to go get Dame. I don't know if they want to play the two small guards, even smaller than Portland's played with Dame and CJ next to each other. I think that the Nets would be more likely than the Knicks myself. But those aren't even the teams I was going to talk about. The Nets isn't really the team I was going to talk about, but the Nets is another possibility. They have some picks on there. They have some salary that they can move off of. Obviously, we'd want somebody like Claxton as well. But
would this be probably not Bridges, right? Dame would go play with Bridges.
he would want to play with Bridges, yeah. So I do like your
Ben Simmons would be the big piece we'd get back.
He would be the salary matching, obviously. I do like your point about the Pelicans, Kirby. I think that if the Pelicans went all in and they could send CJ to even a third team, I would be fine with their non-Zion assets. Yeah. Trey Murphy, Dyson Daniels, Herb Jones, all those guys would be better fits and better players for the Blazers for positional fit wise going forward. I think that I would be super happy to trade him there. They could have a big three of Dame, Zion, and Brandon Ingram, and we would get picks and those young guys back. Like that makes
seems like it works.
Ton of sense. So I would love that. I don't know if it's going to happen. As far as the most likely team, I think they're talking to you. I think it's Philadelphia, and here's why I think that. Philly obviously wants to make Embiid happy. Harden's on the way out. Yep. Philadelphia just signed, as of a couple hours ago, Kelly Oubre, which for whatever reason, Dame is obsessed with Kelly Oubre, it seems. He's a big fan of Kelly Oubre. Rumors earlier in the offseason were saying that Miami was going to look to sign Kelly Oubre after trading for Dame because he knows they're buddies. Philadelphia went out and just signed Kelly Oubre. So I'm wondering if that's kind of a hello, Dame, we're entering the Dame race, and we got your buddy here. In the past,
Philadelphia has entered the chat.
Yeah, they've entered the chat. They might get left on red, but at least they've entered the chat. But they've said in the past they don't want to trade Maxey. If Philadelphia is not trading Maxey, they're not getting Damian Lillard. I can tell you that much. The Blazers, it's the same thing as Tyler Hero. They're not going to want Tyrese Maxey. The Blazers are not. But I think Tyrese Maxey might have a little bit more trade value than Tyler Hero. So if that gets flipped to a third team, whatever assets you can get to the third team, whether that's trading him to somewhere like, I don't know, Utah or something, and you acquire some assets back along with the Philadelphia picks that they have a couple firsts, that could be an enticing deal depending on what other team values Tyrese Maxey. So that's a team I think that it's likely that they're talking to if there is another team. A team that I'd want to trade them to, Kirby, you said it, it's Toronto. You kind of gave a breakdown. I don't have to dive too deep in, but they would have such a great lineup. Just getting rid of Barnes. I know that Toronto fans love Scotty Barnes. He was the rookie of the year for a reason. He took a step back last season. They have three wings. I'm not sure that they all fit the future going forward. I think that they'd want to move Siakam out of those guys. But if they pivot and pair Dame with Blazer legend Gary Trent Jr., and then they'd have OG, Siakam, and Jakob Poeltl. That's an amazing starting lineup. That could be a top seed in the East. They'd have Dennis Schroeder off the bench. They'd have some of the pieces that they'd keep, because if I was a Blazer fan and they would offer Scotty Barnes, I would just take Scotty Barnes and maybe, a first or two. I wouldn't be too greedy because you'd be getting the player to pair with Scoot, Shaden, Simons. Like Scotty Barnes would be an amazing addition. So I think it would work well for both sides. I'm not sure that I think that Masai, the GM in Toronto, very highly rates his own players. He overvalues his own players. So I don't think it's going to happen, but that would be where I would want out of an Eastern Conference team that could realistically happen.
I sort of feel like the rest of the NBA world is catching up with Portland's fans' impatience of getting this thing done with already. There has been a lot more social media posts from like Sports Center and ESPN and those sorts of accounts listing possible trade destinations. There's been more reports from Mark Spears, those sorts of guys, listing out possible destinations for Dame. So hopefully this thing gets done soon. It's been dragging on long enough, especially as local Portland media here covering this thing. Give us something to talk about, please. Make a move.
So I think it's interesting. Everybody's kind of impatient. The NBA 2K24, everybody's favorite basketball video game, actually has pre-recorded commentary of if Dame goes to Miami, and it's pretty interesting. They prepared because they think it's such an inevitable thing. Thanos, I am inevitable. But what if some other team comes in and says, I am Philadelphia 76ers, and stops Thanos, right? So we'll see what happens. Pop culture reference here and there.
Wow,
Everybody's seen Avengers, right? So I think it's an interesting thing that everybody thinks it's a foregone conclusion. I know that it is the most likely scenario, but I'm glad Joe Cronin is not rushing into anything. Played it as well as he could. And actually, it's funny because Miami has kind of lost out on some free agents that they could have signed because they're waiting for Dame, like Kelly Oubre, like Christian Wood. They thought that those guys coming was probably a likelihood earlier in the offseason, but because Cronin has made them play the patient game, they're sitting here losing out on all these valuable players. Well, they already lost Gabe Vincent, right? So, going to be interesting to see what happens. Strus, right. Max Strus, too. So, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I think that the longer this goes on, are the Heat going to get desperate or what? We'll see. Are they going to clear out all their assets besides Bam and Jimmy? Blazer fans certainly hope so.
Yeah.
They missed out on a potential all Kelly offseason too. Olenek and Oubre Jr. Man, devastating for the Heat.
The best thing that we can hope for is just that Joe keeps playing it the way he has been, because we definitely could have gotten taken for everything that we were worth, if he had just rolled over and let Miami do what they wanted to do and what Dame wanted them to do. So at least we're seeing a little bit of a pushback. At least we're seeing a situation where the media is showing that there might be a little bit of competition, which might put some pressure on Pat Riley to make a deal finally happen that's not just the same hero and scraps package. I'd love to see another team get involved, and I think that they needed a little bit of pressure to make that happen.
Hero and the iron ass Kyle Lowry, don't forget him, hanging out with Chauncey.
Well, did you guys see that the NBA put out a new rule about resting star players?
Yeah.
So that might actually come into play with the Blazers. Again, Dame might have to play. It depends on how the letter of the law works and if he can fake an injury to sit, but he might have to play. And I don't know if we want that, but I've been saying it might happen.
I mean, the NBA was pretty clear. It's not a matter of whether the team thinks he should play or whether he thinks he should play. It's not really up to them. If he's healthy, he has to go. And that's interesting. That's different, So we either have to trade him before the season starts, or we play him, or he fakes an injury. And, those are really the only options. How suspicious would it look, by the way, if he came in, after all this time he's had off to recover and everything, and was like, no, I can't play because of my quad or my abdomen or whatever. The NBA would have to send in like some third party specialist, but also the team doctors aren't really going to be that motivated to corroborate his story at this point either. So it might be interesting to see how that all plays out.
How are they going to enforce that rule of not starting or not being able to sit star players? Are they going to have like a third party medical staff? Has anybody heard?
I haven't heard.
I don't know if they're going to go. I think it's more of a threat, but also if they blatantly try to do it, they'll get slapped on the wrist. Like the Clippers, how they've been resting Kawhi and Paul George constantly, they won't be able to do that. They'll have to like pick one of them to rest. And I don't know how it's going to go, but we'll see if it works.
It sort of just seems like it's going to force the teams to do what the old school style of just lying and saying, they have whatever tendinopathy, knee tendinopathy, because every NBA player always has knee tendinopathy. So it seems like it would be pretty hard to enforce unless you did eventually come out with some sort of third party system, testing system. But even then, it's like, can a third party really say whether or not a player is in enough pain to have to sit? It seems like a messy situation. Like you said, it's probably just more of a threat rather than anything, but it seems like a pretty easy threat to sidestep around for most teams.
Yeah, I mean, who's to say Lillard doesn't come in day one of training camp and pull his hamstring? I mean, he could be fully healthy coming in and then somehow miraculously, I mean, are they going to say, no, you didn't pull your hamstring, you got to play? I doubt it, So,
yeah.
Yes, it would look sketchy and everyone would think the same thing, but they can't call it on that. If it's not like a actual injury, I doubt, like you said, if they make up an injury like that, there's no way that they're going to call them on it. And I actually don't even think Dame's going to allow them to say it's a fake injury. I just don't, even though they have in the past with tanking, I think he's like last offseason, I think he could have played, or last season, he could have played like the rest of the way. And they kind of wink, wink, made a fake injury. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. I think he's going to play if he's on the roster. I've been saying it. But I do think my final prediction is that this trade will happen before.
Yeah.
I think it. I can't say if it'll happen before training camp, but I think it actually will. I think that it'll get done. Sadly, it'll be to Miami after all this talk we just had, but we'll see. Things could change fast in the NBA. In the next 24 hours, we could have something different.
Yeah, I 100% agree with what you said. I've said it for a while now that I think like Cronin's posturing, he's doing all he can. He's hoping that something miraculous does happen. Some other team gets involved or gets, a wild hair and wants to go for it. But I think at the end of the day, you make the trade, you send him to Miami, and you don't tarnish the beginning of the season with these young players.
I think most likely that's exactly what's going to happen. I'm glad that at least we're trying to not just give in to Pat Riley and Dame's wishes, because they've got this crazy like Jafar situation going on in the league where they can kind of just make people do what they will. But
I'm excited for the end of the Dame era. I'm over it. He had a great run in Portland, and I'm thankful for everything he gave the team. But it's been time to move on from him for a while. The way the team's situated, I think it's been pretty obvious to everyone involved that it's time to move on, and I'm excited for the future. I think that the team, it's going to take a few years, but I think they have a real opportunity to be a better team than any team that Dame has ever played on in Portland.
Hope
so. I think that the one that he played on with Wesley Matthews, Batum, Aldridge, Lopez had a chance until Matthews tore his Achilles. But you're right. I mean, I think what's interesting, parallel, is when Dame was coming in as a rookie and the whole starting lineup had been replaced, the team did better than everyone thought. This is something we've talked about on this podcast. We think this team could be just as good as they have been since they won't be tanking. So it'll be interesting to see, like, if the Blazers exceed expectations, is that actually harmful for long term? I don't think so, but it kind of was before because we didn't get more good players around Dame. So it's all about surrounding Scoot, Shaden, Simons, whoever with good young talent, and that is the point of this Dame trade. That is the point of holding out for doing as much as you can. You want to build the roster with young talent, not just get one good young player.
It's also why I think it's really important that we get picks back, first round picks, because I mean, if the team takes off in the first year or two and we don't really get good picks on our own, we still need to be able to draft some players, or else we are going to end up in that same Dame and Aldridge situation. So yeah, I think it's critical that we get some picks we can use.
Thanks for tuning in to watch our continuous breakdown of this situation. let us know in the comments where you think Dame will end up. I think I probably asked that question a few times before, but let us know again. Maybe something will have changed. Thanks for watching, everyone. We will see you on the next one.